Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsey, and as always, I have the terrific pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Shipman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. Happy New Year to you and the whole HorseCenter crowd. I don't know if I'm on the East Coast. I feel like I'm in Alaska the last couple of weeks, Brian. It's been so cold.
Ice Station Zebra, indeed, Matt. I think most of the country is under the deep freeze. We've been away for over a week with the holidays, folks. We hope you had a great Christmas, great holiday season, and a very happy 2018 to you. Matt, let's jump right into the action. There was a lot of big action while you were away, most of it in the West Coast at Santa Anita. The great race place hosted a slew of Grade 1 and Grade 2 races. Let's start with Saturday's Grade 1 American Oaks. Daddy's Little Darling finally became a Grade 1 winner, Matt. She had been knocking on the door so long.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a nice field in there where New Money Honey was the favorite, just a little bit over Daddy's Little Darling, but the Kenny McPeak trainee finally got her first Grade 1 victory.
Yeah, Chad Brown had a strong two-horse entry. One of them was scratched. Rimza was scratched, so that left New Money Honey, who looked to have kind of a pace advantage. I don't know that it necessarily worked out that way. She was a little bit surprising of a favorite to me over Daddy's Little Darling, considering New Money Honey hadn't been getting it done in her last few. Daddy's Little Darling, we knew she liked the distance. This legacy of Scat Daddy, the great sire Scat Daddy, is just moving on in terrific fashion, Matt. Daddy's Little Darling, second in the Kentucky Oaks and Ashland on dirt. Matt, I think she's even better on turf. She was second in the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup out here in Keeneland, and she finally got it done. And you know what, Matt? I thought at one point that New Money Honey could win it early in the stretch, and it would be hard for Daddy's Little Darling. She came right up, went by her, and then I thought Madame Dance-A-Lot had her measured at the eighth pole, but Daddy's Little Darling, she was simply best in here.
Yeah, she held off that challenge, and I agree. It looked like Madame Dance-A-Lot was going to go right by. And it was 10 furlongs, and New Money Honey, we already know, had run well on that Santa Anita turf last year. So all in all, a big, big victory and a lot to look forward to in 2018 for Daddy's Little Darling.
And you know, another reason I like Kenny McPeak is a trainer I like, but another reason I like this 3-year-old filly, now she's a 4-year-old filly, daughter of Scat Daddy Matt. She's the one that went to the Empson Oaks. They were going to roll the dice with one of the biggest 3-year-old filly races in the world. They sent her to England for the Epsom Oaks. Apparently it was a lightning strike that scared her. She dropped her rider. She was a late scratch after making the trip all the way out there. A little bit of retribution here with a nice Grade 1 win at Santa Anita on Saturday. Speaking of Grade 1 wins, Matt, we're going to go back to the day after Christmas, for that was opening day at Santa Anita, and talk about all the big races there. Let's start with the Colts, the Malibu. Really interesting field. There were no superstars, but a bunch of good horses. And it was a 7-1 shot who pretty much took the race over early and went all the way.
Yeah, it was a small field, but a field that had Pavel in it, a horse that a lot of people have high on their list for the older male division this year. And then there were some up-and-comers like Dabster and for Baffert and CZ Rocket for Al Stall. But as you said, Brian, right out of the gate, City of Light took control of the race and took them wire to wire. Those other horses that I mentioned just really didn't show very much at all.
Matt, I'm going to disagree on one of those. I agree with you on Dabster and CZ Rocket really didn't do much, and I think the advantage was there for the pace. Pavel, he's done a lot, and he probably needs a little break. I'm not sure what they're going to do with him after this race, but he really had a bad trip. He looked like he was full of horse a lot of the way. He was in behind horses. He tried to swing way out, then he was pushed way in, and he was still running. He was one of the better ralliers in the field to finish fourth. If I was the connections of Pavel, I would think that was a strong performance. And when they stretch him back out again, he'll probably be really ready to run. So I'm not negative on Pavel's performance. Edwards going left obviously is a good California sprinter. Favorable Outcome kind of did what I thought he'd do. He made a mild rally, but he's probably not one of Chad Brown's very best. But City of Light, a son of Quality Road, Matt.
Yep.
And at the Breeders' Cup, we saw how this first crop of Quality Road is really doing well.
Yeah, Quality Road is making a lot of noise in the stallion ranks this year. I think he's finishing in the top 4 or 5 this year, so showing really well. And I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit on Pavel. Yes, I agree. There were excuses. Mike Smith let the horse dawdle out of the gate, and that was difficult. But for me, Pavel's moving into one of my lists where when he comes back, he's going to have to start getting to the winner's circle for me.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. But a mile and a quarter, don't forget, he had run 2 straight a mile. It's very tough, a mile and a quarter races so early in his career. To drop down to 7 furlongs against this fast bunch and then to really have nowhere to run for almost a half mile. I actually like the race by Pavel, so we'll see. Another big 7 furlong race, same card, even bigger race, I'd say, Matt. It's the Grade 1 La Brea. And Matt, I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing more of these top 2 all year long. Look out for Forever Unbridled. Look out all the best Abel Tasman, a late. Look out all of the best older mares better have Unique Bella and Paradise Woods on their radar, because I think these 2 highly touted 3-year-old fillies still have not shown their best. And this race, if it's a harbinger to things to come, Matt, I think we have some really, really good stuff to come from Unique Bella, the winner, and Paradise Woods, a very good runner-up.
Yeah, Brian, this was a case where those 2 big-name horses ran as expected. Unique Bella, I thought, looked a lot better, looked a lot more settled during the race, and Mike Smith didn't have any trouble with her, sat a good trip. Paradise Woods ran fantastic coming around the turn, switched down closer to the rail, and those 2 just battled it out. And I agree with you, Brian. I think we're going to see a lot of good stuff from them. Maybe Paradise Woods 7 furlongs is not her best distance. Maybe the longer races are, but for Unique Bella, I think that La Brea was right in her wheelhouse.
Maybe, and I think that's the popular thinking right now, that Unique Bella is better suited for distances at under a mile, but I'm not convinced she can't be really good at a mile 16th, mile and 8th, the daughter of Tappet, the big, strong, powerful daughter of Tappet. So it'll be interesting to me to see what the master trainer, Jerry Hollendorfer, has in store for her this year, because I think, like I said, the Breeders' Cup, 9 furlongs, I think that would be my goal right now. And we'll see if she proves better sprinting, then so be it. But I want to see her get more chances at 2 turns, still lightly raced, full of potential. It was good to see her relaxed, Matt. She had a wide trip in this race, but it was nice to see her not so headstrong early as she was in her first 2 races after a long layup. And yeah, Paradise Woods ran a big race, because Paradise Woods was in the middle and just forcing a very fast, contested early pace, and she stuck around really well. Daughter of Union Rags should, again, she's speedy, but she should love 2 turns. So really good setup, I think, for Paradise Woods going into 2018. And I think as highly touted as both of them are, I think they might be, 1 or 2 of them might be even better than we've seen so far. So that's exciting. And Paradise Woods, Matt, I mentioned Hollendorfer. Paradise Woods is certainly in good hands and under Richard Mandela, looking to replace Beholder.
Yep, and Mandela is good with the fillies and mares. Again, the distaff division looks like it's going to be really strong in 2018, with Late coming back and Abel Tasman coming back. Lot to look forward to there.
Yeah, and it's kind of odd, because as much as these fillies and mares are selling, the November breeding stock sales in Kentucky and Lexington, Fasig-Timpton or Keeneland, Songbird over 9 million, and all the big numbers we've seen for going on 10 years now. But it seems like connections are willing to wait that out a little bit and let these mares run at 4 and even 5, and it's nice to see. And that's why I think the filly and mare, older filly and mare dirt division has been, and turf division for that matter, has been so fun the last few years. So we have a lot to look forward to in that division in 2018 for sure, Matt. Now the older males, I'm not so sure about what we're going to see in 2018. I think that is kind of a hodgepodge right now. Of course, the big horse is Gun Runner, and we expect one more race to come in a little over 3 weeks down in the $16 million Pegasus World Cup. But as far as the rest of the division, I'm not sure. And Matt, that's going to be exactly what I say about Tuesday's San Antonio. I'm not sure what I just saw.
Yeah, and I think you and I talked on the last show. I think you and I talked a good bit about the San Antonio in terms of not knowing what to expect, especially from Collected. What was he doing in that race? Is he going to be 100%? And if I'm not mistaken, I remember, Brian, I think you liked the winner of that race, Giant Expectations, a little bit.
Well, I said there's several horses in the race who are good and could pop up and win this one, and he was one of them. I just never thought he'd get away with almost 25 for the first quarter, 49 and change, and almost 113, and have a relatively easy lead, Matt. So I got to ask, who was in last place with the speedy 3-10 favorite, Mike Smith and Collected? What were they doing back there?
Yeah, and there have been plenty of questions already about that. And again, I don't have any answers, but it certainly wasn't what we expected from Collected to be at the back of the field and not contesting the pace. Was he just not revved up? Is he not the horse that he was? He had, as we know, had a busy campaign and continuing on without any time off. So it heads Collected into the Pegasus with a lot more question marks than we might have expected.
Bottom line for the horse, I don't think it was all that bad a performance. I think it was a case of a couple things. Mike Smith took credit for a bad ride. Okay, but I think there was more than that, Matt. I think this was just a workout. And for all those people that bet Collected, I wasn't going to bet Collected at 3-10 or 3-5 or even money in there. But for all those people that bet Collected at 3-10, I think they got a raw deal, Matt. I think that this was not a race that they were all that interested or worried about winning. And, better beware a little bit on this one. But obviously it was a workout for the Pegasus. 3-10, he rallied a little bit. He almost got second. He was third, but Giant Expectations is a nice horse. He goes forward to the Pegasus. Maybe he adds some speed to the Pegasus, but can we really see him making a big impact at Gulfstream Park? I'm doubtful.
I agree with that, Brian. I think, with the result of the San Antonio and some other things, we're just heading into the Pegasus with Gun Runner looking like a stronger and stronger and stronger favorite in the race.
Absolutely. And my pick for a while has been West Coast as the second horse in the Pegasus World Cup. He's coming in off the Breeders' Cup layoff as well. So I'll have to see. But we know Gun Runner is working like a monster, and we can expect nothing but what we've seen Gun Runner doing for about over a year, I guess now. So yeah, he's the Pegasus horse to beat, and his odds on are much more palatable than Collected's were in the San Antonio. Sharp as Tekka working like a monster also, so we hope that he gets in the field. We're still waiting for some sort of deal to be made there, but we're going to talk a whole lot more about the Pegasus next week, Matt. I know we want to do a real preview now that the field is coming together pretty well. But Matt, we want to talk about Kentucky Derby a little bit because we're not that many months away, and all sorts of things are happening, including some very, very interesting debuts recently.
Yeah, we got to talk about the Derby, Brian, because we're only 120 days away. So, hey, and as you said, Brian, there are some doings going on. Couple of new horses appeared since we last talked, and I guess we may as well start up with the horse that we saw at Santa Anita, and that is a horse named Axman. Yeah, yes, who's the trainer? Bob Baffert. Interestingly, that was Baffert's first win at the Santa Anita meeting. I think it was his first win in 13 tries, going back to and including 6 runners on that big day on December 26th. But Axman comes out on January 1st, wins first asking, which of course has to bring in the Apollo curse discussion. If there's any fans out there who don't know, Apollo in 1882 was the last horse to win the Kentucky Derby without having started as a 2-year-old.
I think I remember that Derby, Matt. I'm not sure if I was there or not, but I think I remember. Apollo curse. Okay, so no horse has won the Kentucky Derby in 135 years that didn't race as a 2-year-old. So you're telling me if Axman had run December 31st, he'd be fine, but since he ran January 1, he's got no shot and we should throw him out. Is that right?
That's what people say.
Okay, so Axman is a son of Misremembered. Misremembered is a talented son of Candy Ride, right, Matt? So Misremembered, and I remember him running pretty well at Churchill Downs. So Misremembered is an interesting young sire for 2-turn distances. But on the other side, he's also a son of Shameful, and Shameful is the dam of a really good champion, Indian Blessing. But Indian Blessing was probably better, especially as she got into a groove as a 3-year-old, as an older filly of running in races under a mile. So Axman, the pedigree, we're not sure what it means for a distance yet. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and a little bit more about Misremembered. Misremembered ran for Baffert, and he did win the Santa Anita Handicap in 2010.
10 furlongs. Good point. All right, so getting back to this debut, New Year's Day, Santa Anita. Matt, he won by, he wasn't bet down. He was 7-5. He won by 9.5 lengths in 109.2. So he couldn't have been much more impressive. If he's going to be a top-notch sprinter, that's kind of what you'd expect out of a first-time starter, but we don't know. Maybe he gets a little bit of that misremembered distance and can move forward. It was interesting before the race coming in, he had worked in tandem basically with McKenzie, who's probably Baffert's top-rated 2-year-old, now 3-year-old going in. So that was an impressive workout. 7-5, 9-horse field. He wasn't pounded, but he sure looked like maybe he should have been the 3-10 shot in this day.
Yeah, and it was an interesting race, maiden special weight, with a really interesting condition in the book. It was a race that you could only get into if you were a 3-year-old that was a homebred or sold at auction for less than $100,000. Very interesting. I'm not sure why didn't they just make the condition you had to have a trainer with long, straight white hair and sunglasses.
Well, whatever the case, it worked out well for Baffert and the Axman. I think that was the Beatles song back in the day, Matt. Whoa, the Axman? No, that's not right. All right, so Axman is our top debuter over the holidays, but there was one down in Florida, and this is going back, Matt. I guess it was a couple days before Christmas, December 23, Gulfstream Park. Mark Hennig and Cortland Farms were having a big day already, and then they unveiled a Speightstown. He was a juvenile at the time, so he doesn't fall into that Apollo curse, and his name is Strike Power.
Yes, Brian, and let's keep in mind that Mark Hennig is not a trainer who is known for cranking up horses to win first time. He has a very low first time winning percentage, as you said, Brian. This one is out of the prolific sire Speightstown. Got a 102 buyer speed figure from the race, which is the second highest for which was the second highest for a juvenile, sandwiched between Bolt Doro and Good Magic. The Speightstown side might make you wonder about the distance, but the mare for this horse is one who won and ran at 10 furlongs and 9 furlongs. So it's got some distance on the female side.
Yeah, and Speightstown's a sire that I've certainly seen sons of his go a distance, so that doesn't scare me off too much. We're talking 5.5 furlongs, folks, in 102 3/5. It was a stakes race day down at Gulfstream that day, and he ran as fast as anybody, including stakes sprinters. So 102-3, a very nice debut for Strike Power from Mark Hennig, and as we said, Cortland Farms. Now, unfortunately, Matt, we did get some bad news already on the Derby Trail. Horse who had won 2 straight stakes after being a maiden in his first 2 races, Gravitas. And in fact, California, he got out of Los Al. He got out of Southern California, San Luis Rey before the tragic fire there, and he went to Oklahoma. He went to Remington Park for the Springboard Mile, and he won pretty impressively from an outside post. Unfortunately, that horse came down with some bone chips, Matt.
Yeah, and trainer Adam Kitchenman, I guess, still has some hope that they're going to be able to get Gravitas running again a little later on the Derby Trail. Apparently, the surgery was very, very minor. The bone chips were very small and didn't require much work to remove them. So they're hoping when the incisions heal up, they'll be able to get this one back running. I hope so. I drafted that one in our Kentucky Derby Fantasy League, Brian. So I'm the first one in the league with a casualty.
Yeah, Matt, I was just about to say I wouldn't want to have him on my fantasy team right now, but hey, you have some strong contenders still going on your team, and maybe he will be back. Hopefully he comes back at 100% when he's fully sound and ready to go. No reason to rush for the Derby with a horse that could be as good as Gravitas looks so far. Matt, we got a bunch of stakes coming. I guess the Shim is a week from Saturday or a week from Sunday. We got the Jerome going to be contested sometime soon. Forensic Fire looks like a big favorite there. Of course, it was canceled already because of the weather. It looks like it's not going to be anytime soon because of that frigid weather in New York. But we'll have the Jerome sooner or later. And then more immediately, I think the Mucho Macho Man, which is an ungraded, no points for the Kentucky Derby, but it looks like an interesting field, and that's this Saturday at Gulfstream Park where there's no weather problems.
Yeah, and I think before we talk a little bit more about the Mucho Macho Man, I think it points out kind of what's been going on with these early preps in New York, that trainers, a lot of trainers, they just don't want to have to worry about the cold weather up in New York, and the Jerome and the Withers are not necessarily getting the kind of horses that they used to. When you see the Mucho Macho Man, as you said, Brian, no points, no graded stake attracts a couple of really nice horses who are probable in Dak Attack. That's one I know, Brian, you scouted out amazingly even before he had even run, and he's done you well. 2 starts for Dale Romans, 2 wins, very impressive, some time off, training well for this return. And then also Bal Harbor is in there, who won a few weeks ago at Gulfstream in the smooth air for Todd Plesher. And a long list of possibles in there, which include some nice first-time runners like Noble Indy and Mask.
Yeah, Matt. To tell you the truth, 2 of the horses that, besides the biggest names, the ones that are proven Breeders' Cup or the Los Al Cash Call Futurity horses, 2 of the horses that I'm most excited about going into 2018 are probably going to be running Saturday at Florida. And one of them, of course, was Dak Attack, who's been terrific in 2 different tracks here in Kentucky in two races. He hasn't run. I was there that day at Ellis Park to see him win the Ellis Park Juvenile. Dak Attack out of Go Zapper, I like a lot. One of my favorite horses who hasn't run in graded stakes. And then Mask. I expect Mask to be in the field from what I've heard. Chad Brown, trainee, really liked what he did his first time out in New York. So if we get Dak Attack and Mask both in there, the Mucho Macho Man is a race I can't wait to see. You mentioned Bal Harbor, who hasn't been overly impressive, but he's won a couple of listed stakes for Pletcher. He's the more experienced horse, and experience matters. He's run 6 times as opposed to Dak Attack just twice with a layoff, and then Mask just once. So I'm excited about this Mucho Macho Man. Forget about the points, forget about the graded race. This is a very interesting early Kentucky Derby prep.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing. I like seeing trainers that aren't worried about the points. Let's get a good prep race in and get ready for some of the bigger races going on. Everything doesn't have to be about the points.
That's right. And Nobilindi, I'm not sure if he's going to be entered for Pletcher, but if he gets in there too, add his name to the full of promise in the Mucho Macho Man. So that should be interesting on Saturday. Hey, folks, I just want to thank you again for continuing to watch HorseCenter now as we move into 2018. Once again, hope you had a great holiday. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Horse Racing Nation. I want to thank our sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. And Matt, can I get a parting shot from you today?
Sure, Brian. I'm hoping for warm weather, and I think at least up here in a week or so, weather's supposed to break, and maybe we'll see the Jerome that same weekend as the Sham. That's my guess. And as always, I want to thank Brett Workman for putting our show together.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, folks. Next week, we're going to be back. We're going to be talking about a few of these races a little bit more, but especially next week, we're going to do a real big Pegasus World Cup preview. It is going to be the race of the first quarter of 2018 and the last race for Gun Runner. So we're excited about that. We'll see you next week on another edition of HorseCenter.